It's Good Friday, the Friday before Easter. As we take you through the afternoon, we'll be joined in an hour on WFAN. We'll have a couple of guests today. Dr. O'Brien on Tua and the updates on Tua's injuries. He'll join us from the West Coast in a little while. We'll also Albert Breer on some NFL stuff also, and then we'll hit the fan at 6 o'clock this evening as we head towards a different kind of Easter than any of us have ever experienced. Our kids, none of us. I look at my kids who are teenagers, youngsters, but obviously old enough now to know what's going on in the world. They will tell the stories of this year for the rest of their lives. This will be a story they will tell forever. This has been the strangest year any of us can ever imagine. It's been the strangest spring. It will be probably the strangest summer. And obviously, it's the strangest Easter. We hit this Easter weekend. And by the time the weekend is over, there will be over 500,000 cases in America. Right now, 488,000 cases and climbing in America. Over 200,000 in the metropolitan area. If you count New York and New Jersey, you're at 224,000, 170,000 in the state of New York, 54,000 in New Jersey, not even adding Connecticut in, and you're already well over 200,000. 488,000 in America and climbing, and 18,000 deaths. Now the debate is starting to change a little bit as we see, with a couple of notable exceptions, as we see the hospital beds or the hospital admissions going down, the trips to the intensive care units going down. We do not see the deaths yet going down, but that's because the people who got it weeks ago in the surge are still dying off. So those numbers are going up still by the day at a very high clip. Basically, nationally, well over 1,000 a day. In New York, it's been in the high sevens, almost 800. I think it was 777 last night. So the number's still outrageously high. And now the debate will start to switch as we get past Easter towards what's going on in the economy and also how we would ever start to reopen the country. Now, remember, because someone declares, even the president of the country open, doesn't mean that a state has to agree. It doesn't have to agree. A city doesn't have to agree. A state doesn't have to agree. Everyone can open at a different time. Everyone probably will open different times. The question is how. You don't want to have a second. We're not even through the first, but you don't want a second run of this because that would be devastating. You could never close the country again. We'd have to live through all the deaths. We would never close it again. I don't think that would be possible. But, and God bless Shem, Emma's assisting me today. She sneezed. She'll get the guests up, including Dr. O'Brien, in a minute or two. But what we see is there. And this one poll I'm going to show you illustrates the big problem they have. Poll taken yesterday. Two numbers that come out of the poll. Would you go to a live sporting event? 61% who consider themselves ardent fans said they would not go to a sporting event until there was a vaccine. 72% of the people who were just general public didn't consider themselves to be anything special on the fan level, not ardent fans. 72% said they would not go to a live sporting event until there was a vaccine for the coronavirus. That's 72% of the general public, 61% of the ardent fans. That means sports has a huge problem. That means live events have a huge problem. That means any concert has a huge problem. That means travel has a huge problem. That means airlines have a big problem. Hotels have a big problem. Uh, and really, our life as we know it has a big problem. Now, I read this morning the enormous work being done around the clock. I'm glad something's being done around the clock. The enormous work being done in laboratories as they do clinical studies to try and rush these drugs, and how they're rushing these drugs, and how they have 21 different drugs or vaccines that they are looking to get into clinics by the fall. They also have the therapeutics, which means drugs that have been used in the past on other people and could be in combination with another drug or by themselves, are being tested now. They're being tested as we speak on virus victims. And those studies can be ready as soon as next month in some places. This is all very promising. Pfizer has a drug they feel very high, a vaccine they feel very strongly about. And they will test that in London in July and again in August, which they said is incredibly quick, but they have very high hopes for it because it works on the enzyme. I guess something akin to it worked on SARS, and this works on the enzyme, and they're very high on the drug. The Pfizer people were very, very confident in this drug. But still, these is going to be ways off, and for a vaccine, probably a year off, and for therapeutics, at least the fall off. And you have business people who are panicking, telling Washington, we got to get back. And then you have Dr. Fauci saying, this is not the time to pull back on prevention methods. If you do, it will be a disaster. So you got this tug of war now. And that's going to be the debate that begins next week. This incredible tug of war. And it's got to be done right. We've already taken this much medicine. It's got to be done right. But here's what's been forgotten in all this is the testing. The federal government has gotten out of testing. And every doctor will tell you, I haven't seen one plan yet that doesn't include massive testing. But you don't hear anything about testing anymore. Early on, the president and Pence got up there and said there'll be 5 million tests within a week. There'll be 10 million tests after this much time. There'll be 25 million tests after this much time. We haven't even done 2 million tests after all this time in the entire country. So the testing has dropped off dramatically. And you still can't get testing. And there's no unified way of doing testing. There's no mapping. There's no nothing. So until somebody gives you a better idea, I didn't see any plans that don't include testing. So I don't think we know when to come back, and I don't think we know how to come back. And that leaves us in a very chaotic state right now. Thankfully, we have had an incredible number of people who are sick. We probably have had more than people even know because we haven't tested. We've probably had more people even die than we know because we haven't been really strict on the numbers. It's been really bad, but we haven't lost as many people as some of us feared, which is a positive. That might be the only positive we take out of this. But from here, there's this tug of war about when to lift. Fauci today saying, do not do it too early. Trump talks about this being the best decision he ever made. In some places, it won't even be his decision because he can't command a city to open. He can't command a state to open. They don't have to open if they don't want to. He didn't close everything. He didn't close things in a lot of places. The first one to close anything was Adam Silver when he shut down the NBA. That started everything. So this whole combination of judgments, city, state, government, how we open, how we judge, how we do everything when we go forward is going to be fascinating to watch and very important to our future. All right, a couple of things in sports. Number one, Baseball's trying to still fool around with this Arizona thing, but they're not getting great response from the players. They're not. There's a lot of people who have been against it. So I don't know where it stands right now. We'll have to wait and see. I think a lot will depend on what happens in the next week. I think they're trying to take their cue, but when they get polls like that, they're not happy. They're not happy. I think they're just trying to see where this thing goes in the next couple of days. By the Easter weekend, see where we are Monday and Tuesday. See if the curve is actually flattening. See if the deaths start to go down. And then see where we are. NFL will have the draft 12 days away, or 13 days away. Would have been 2 weeks from last night. I think it's a positive that they're having a draft. You're getting more and more information about Tua, and Tua is going to be the whole deal in this draft. Everything's going to be about Tua. Leading up to the next 2 weeks, everything's going to be about Tua. We'll have more on that with Dr. Bryan in a minute. Then the NFL, which is talking about changes already in the rules for next year. And it looks like what they did with instant replay this year will go away. Looks like there'll be no sky judge. There will be some changes in the rules. I'll go over those with Albert a little later on. So the first word that has been spoken by the sports fans has been, I'm not comfortable going back to games. The first word that has been spoken by the players is, listen, I want to play baseball, but this Arizona thing's got a lot of things in it I don't like. So right now, as we hit Easter, the hospitals they're not getting a break yet, but at least they're not being overrun. We're still getting way, way too many people dying. That's got to stop and really has got to drop enormously. And the feeling is if there's fewer people going in the hospital, it will eventually drop. It might not drop tomorrow, but it'll drop within the next 10 days, God willing. That's what it looks that way. And then we'll kind of see where we are. Nothing's opening before the end of the month. The question is it opening in early May or is it not? De Blasio yesterday said his inkling is not to open to June in New York City, but that doesn't mean that's happening yet. We haven't heard anything yet about anything, and you're going to start to get the economic pressure building up because, let's be honest, the companies are going to start to tell you how badly they're really doing. And the Fed cannot throw trillions of dollars at people every single day. The market would have gone way down yesterday with the unemployment numbers if you hadn't had the Fed do what it did yesterday. But the Fed can't do that every day. They can't play Santa Claus every single day. It can't happen. All right, on this Good Friday, quick break, and then we'll get Dr. O'Brien in on Tua, and we'll get things rolling on this Friday. So a lot of you obviously are spending a very different Easter weekend. Hey, if you're healthy, be happy. If this virus hasn't knocked on your door, be happy. On injuries and the like, the noted orthopedic surgeon from Hospital for Special Surgery, where they have been obviously on hold like all the other doctors have been with elective surgery, joins us now. Doc, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Mike. You got a great young producer there.
Yes, Em's doing a great job. Doc, there's a lot of stories today. That's why I had you on. A lot of commentary, some more video on Tua. We're 13 days from the draft. He's the topic of conversation. We heard from Lynn Kane. We heard from Chip Root, who is the guy, I guess it's Rout or Root, I'm not sure how you say it, who operated on him. And then we heard from a noted hip specialist, Dr. Thomas Bird, all basically gave pretty much very good to glowing recommendations about where he is right now. Here's an example. Lynn Kane said that Tua's both technically is progressing well, and both technically and physically and functionally. In terms of repair, he's fine. He would be cleared for all football activities. He's in normal off-season training program. Just got to get his body back in shape. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be able to play this year. And Dr. Bird, who is, I guess, a noted hip specialist, said that he felt that the injury had healed, that they'd done a successful repair. They had done a CT scan to look at the repair. Do you feel comfortable, as they seem to be right now, from a distance? I guess not always from a distance, because two of them have examined him, that he is at least not damaged goods as he goes into this draft?
Well, there's a lot of money involved here, Mike, and for these teams with a pick like this, and I'm going to poke holes in it if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think we lost Doc for a second. Let's see if we can. Let's try to connect with him again.
Can you hear me?
Now we got you, Doc. Go ahead. Start over.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go
That's
start
okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to poke some holes. You've heard it from one side. Now I'm going to be talking as if I'm advising the owners on this, okay?
Yep.
Now, he's gotten the best medical care that he could possibly get. Lyle Kane, Dr. Rout, and Dr. Bird are all world-class specialists, and they did everything to put him in position to succeed. I watched the tape of him working out that was leaked. But there's a couple of things that are problematic. Number one, it's his right hip. That's the hip that he steps over to throw as a left-handed thrower. So that's going to see more load than the other side. There's 4 different things that could be roadblocks to his success. Number one is something called avascular necrosis. That's not an important term to many people, but that's what they were worried about. The blood supply to the hip goes, and the guy ends up with needing a hip replacement.
Right.
The problem with that is, Mike, I've talked to a number of hip specialists. That can occur any time up till 2 years after the injury.
Wow.
So he's not out of the woods. Second, something called chondrolysis. Chondrolysis means that the surface of the ball isn't damaged at first, but it can lose its surface. It's like losing the icing on a cake or the ice on a skating arena. That's what happened to Bo Jackson. And that's what happens, if you remember, to a player of ours, George Adams, way back when, who was a great running back from Kentucky.
Sure.
Someplace in the Jets. That's the second thing. Third thing is he's had lower load on this side for the last couple of months, and now he's going to be ramping it up. And although his overall bone density is going to be very, very good, the bone density in that hip is going to be reduced because it hasn't seen load, and you can develop what's called a subchondral fracture, which means that there's inflammation can accrue in the bone and can lead to a rapid arthritis in the hip, and that's exactly what I had not too long ago. And so that's the third thing he's at risk for right now. And so the last thing is that, you know, from what I understand, he has what are called athletic hips. He has a little bump on his hip, which a lot of athletes have, and I had this as well. And that also predisposes him to problems with his hip. So he's got AVN, which is the avascular necrosis, which can be up to 2 years. He's got the subchondral fracture, and I saw a report in the last day looking at this of a guy developing it 6 to 12 months out. Third is this loss of the surface cartilage like Bo Jackson, George Adams, which can go, it might not even start for the 6th month. And then, you know, even if the head's okay, this will likely be an arthritic hip down the road. People who had fractures like he had without a hip subluxation or dislocation, 20% of them end up with a hip replacement within 20 years. Having said all that, he's passed all the roadblocks for now. But if I were the team, I'd make a careful contract. I don't know if I'd get an insurance like a Lloyd's of London, or I'd get some kind of caveats in there that would protect the team in the first year or so. And I likely would sign him to a shorter rather than a longer-term contract. Having said all those things, as long as you advise, you know, the owners, then it's buyer beware. I think he'll survive this. I think in the short term he'll be okay. But I think long term would be more problematic. I'm going to say 5 to 10 years. And I would have some caveats in on the contract.
Let me give you a couple things and you react to them. Here's what Dr. Rout said. AVN happens rarely. I only see it about one patient a year. It usually shows up in the first 3 to 4 months. In my studies, every day after that, the chances get smaller and smaller. Do you agree with that?
Yes, although the chances aren't zero. And we've seen that in hip specialists too. Now, Dr. Rout is a world famous surgeon. He's a trauma guy. He's not by definition a hip guy, and he's not seeing as many athletes as someone else who might be a hip arthroscopy specialist. And one of the guys I talked to so far specializes in hip arthroscopy and the problems with younger athletes with high load. He's dealing with bigger fractures and not going back to a pro career. I'm just being honest with you.
Doc, tell me what you think about this one. Before Tua left the stadium the day he got hurt, Kane returned the femur back into its normal position in the hip socket. Something Rout says actually protected him and helped his blood supply dramatically. Now, we don't know much about that. What do you think about learning that happened?
Yeah, if you put it back in place, it does two things. It takes the tension off the vessels to the head. If you stretch like a rubber band, the vessels, they can't supply the blood supply to the head, and hours make differences. So they did a great thing. Now, from what I understand, they put the hip back in place, but because there was a fracture of the wall of the socket, it slipped and they had to put it back in again. But having said that, he is in the best position he could possibly be in to avoid AVN. But in speaking to a hip specialist today, he's seen athletes get AVN up to 2 years. So he's not out of the woods. That's the bottom line.
And
it's low.
Okay.
It's low, but it's not zero.
And according to Bird, he stated now that Tua's right hip is now actually stronger than his left hip.
That's possible in terms of muscular action, but that's not what's going to be at play here. If you looked at his tape, he didn't do any jumping. He didn't do all the things you do at a combine. He was just actually throwing the ball, and he looked good, and he'll probably be okay. But the strength of the hip isn't the problem. It's going to be the load that it sees in the next year. And if he plays right away, that load is going to be on a hip that's been relatively unloaded, right? Now he's going to put a ton of load on it, and he could get what's called his subchondral fracture. So I think that, he's not going to be out of the woods for a while. And so you're taking a flyer on him if you're going to take him. That doesn't mean you can't win, but caveat emptor.
It says they both credit Tua, both doctors, for being extremely compliant, following his post-operative protocol superbly, especially in the area of getting strict rest. And they said that he has actually healed far better than they would have expected.
All right, so let me give you an example, Mike. I took care of a kid recently who's one of the best lacrosse players in the country. And he had surgery on his foot and ankle and was immobilized, let's say, for 4 to 6 weeks. He developed so many stress syndromes around the foot and ankle as he went back to play that he couldn't play. Now, a little bit different situation, but that bone in that right hip, Mike, has not been loaded normally for a while. And it shouldn't be loaded normally for a while either, because he could develop this stress syndrome or stress fracture, which could lead to the demise. So there's a lot of barriers up ahead. We've not passed them all. He's doing great so far, but if I'm advising the owner, I'm telling you exactly what I would advise the owner. Short-term contract. Put in some disclaimers in there about how he does and that he has to continue to hit milestones. And maybe put an escalation clause if he gets past the first year. Because if he gets past the first year, he's probably going to be okay for 5 to 10 years.
Well, this is Kane. Obviously, Kane says here, I know Tua very well. I've worked on him. And here he tries to make a positive out of something that he's being a salesman. He said here, I've treated him for a fractured left index finger, a right knee sprain, and bilateral ankle injuries in both ankles, and he's healed quickly from every one of them. Hey, that's not a good thing. That's in 3 years he had all those injuries, not to mention the hip. That's a lot of injuries in 3 years.
It's a lot of injuries, and sometimes it reflects the playing style. Remember, he's a mobile quarterback, and so this is what you're going to be dealing with. But here's the other thing, Mike. In the last year, he's had both ankles operate on and his right hip. That has to affect the dynamics of his lower extremities in this short term. Now, watching him throw a football isn't the same as watching him leap over a pile or, change direction on a dime or those kinds of things. It's just not an adequate representation, that film that they put out.
And here's what Kane said, too, which I do agree with. He says, here's the thing about him. He says, too, he said he's the most positive person I ever met. Not one time has he ever gotten down at any point during any of these things. He's so positive through this whole process. I never saw him once not work. I never saw him once get down. It was like, here's what we have to do. Let's get it done. He said that's a great quality. So, and everyone swears about what a good leader he is. So you can tell the doctors love him and they're pulling for him. But boy, there's a lot of stuff to deal with this guy. For a guy, listen, he's an incredible talent. I mean, he's a guy he's got Hall of Fame talent, but he's also got a lot of injury history. He really does.
Let's flip that on its tail, though, Mike, and that is that this kid knows how to play hurt.
Oh, he does. No question.
You and I have talked about so many guys that just can't play hurt, whether they get spooked or they worry or they just can't do it. This is a kid that can play hurt. The problem with this is if he has a problem with his hip, no matter how tough he is, he won't survive it as an athlete. That's the problem with this.
How about this, Doc? Let me get you this part. That Route also said that he had to repair a portion of the labrum into his hip when he repaired the fracture. Is that a problem too?
No, because of the location of the labrum tear. The labrum at the top is the one that you worry about more than the one he had, which is down towards the bottom. He also had a lucky thing in that he had an anatomical variation of where the nerve sat that can be injured with this type of injury, which leads to long-term weakness of your hip muscles. And his nerve was in an odd spot, but it worked in his favor because it wasn't damaged. You just hit it.
That's the next sentence. Listen to this. The inferior gluteal nerve, a nerve that contributes to the strength of the gluteal muscles, can be damaged severely with this type of injury. But according to Rout, this nerve was located in a slightly different position and was completely intact for Tua. It never was injured.
Yeah, he's extremely lucky and extremely fortunate. Like I said, he's rolling 7 so far, but he's not out of the woods. And if you're going to be spending millions of dollars on this gentleman, you're going to need to put caveats on his contract, whether that's now or, whether it's one team or whoever it is. I think you have to put some caveats in there.
Well, that's because now the Lions at number 3 have put the pick up for sale, and now there's multiple teams looking to trade up. Matter of fact, we've heard already 5 different teams have evidently talked to him about trading up to number 3 for the pick for Tua. And there's even been rumors about Washington at 2, but I don't believe those. I think they will take Chase Young. But at 3, with them having Stafford and the coach needing to win, I think that Lions will be trading out of that pick. Rout said most people might not notice it, but for an athlete like him, he really regained his power very quickly. He's fully functional, and I think he will do very well. So, hey, they're selling it. They're selling him well. I think there was an early thought that he would be a low number 1. I never believed that. Now we know he's going number 3 in the draft. I don't think there's any question he's going 3 at the latest. And, there's teams that are looking to trade up to get him, and we'll see where he goes from there. But he obviously, it hasn't hurt him because he's bounced back. And whatever they've seen, now remember this year, Doc, they're not going to get a chance to do any other work with him. They're going to take him off the video because of the way what's going on. They're not going to no hands-on with him before this draft. So they're going to go with what they've got now. They've gotten their information. They're going to go with what they have now, what they see on the video, and they're going to go with whatever medical records they can ascertain, and that's going to be how they pick him.
Mike, I would draft him. I want to be clear. I would draft him. It's just a matter of how you structure the contract here, because it's likely he'll be fine.
So if you had a roll of dice, you would draft him. You would just look to get a contract that's accommodating.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Because if you're a team doctor, you're representing the owner. You got to give him all the information and look at, and do a risk profile of what this is going to mean. I would draft him for sure, but my contract would reflect some protection for the team.
Gotcha. So, but you would take him. I would take him. Okay.
I would take him, absolutely.
All right, Doc. Stay well, stay safe, and enjoy your stay out there in California. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, don't lose that producer.
Thank you, Doc.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take a quick break. We'll come back with Albert Breer after this. Albert Breer joins us now. Albert, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Mike?
All right, couple things. First, had Pioli on the other day about the draft and about all the different stuff this year. What's the thing that you're most concerned about these teams having? I know they're whining about a lot of stuff. A lot of GMs wanted to cancel. The owners said no. Obviously, the commissioner said no. A lot of the guys talking about how it's going to be tough logistically. What's the biggest complaint you're hearing?
I'd say, I think there are two. Number one, I think there's a very real IT issue.
Yeah, you're not going to have 50 phone calls. You're not going to have 50 phone lines, obviously.
I think that's real. Because I've talked to. It's interesting because I wrote about the IT issue maybe 2.5 weeks ago, and I had a bunch of various guys who reached out to me and said, "Yeah, this is real. This is the life that all of us who are out on the road live." In fact, one told me that the internet connection at his house isn't strong enough to support the programs he's got loaded on his computer to do all the film work and everything else. And so when he wants to work from home, he's got to go to the Starbucks down the street. And that sounds like he wasn't complaining. It's just, reality for him. And, his point was, now we're going to have all these different guys running the draft from all their houses. And it's going to take a lot to make sure that all these guys can have the resources that they're going to want to have in front of them to run the draft. So that's part of it. I know a memo went out to the league guys that they're the GMs, the head coaches, they're allowed to have one IT guy, one security guy on site with them, and that's it. On draft day. So that's number one. And then number two, I think it's just what you said, which is the communication part of it, and will trades be able to happen the way that they normally do? And as you know, Mike, in a lot of these draft rooms, a general manager might assign 5 different guys to work the phones with teams that each of those guys connected with. And if those are sitting at a table next to you making those phone calls, it's not that difficult to do it. If you're trying to coordinate that from 5 different people's houses, we're talking about something else altogether, especially when you've got the clock ticking down. And so I think that some of the teams are already sort of anticipating that being a problem and are starting to work ahead now on contingencies. So I think what you're going to start to see over the next few weeks is teams are going to make trade calls ahead of the draft more aggressively now because they're afraid that, if they're looking to trade on draft day, some of those.
We're talking with Albert Breer. We lose Albert? He's still there. Albert, you still there?
You got me?
Okay.
I'm here.
Scott made the point, and obviously from his many years with the Patriots, he said, no, never do we go in that room that day with any scenario we haven't worked out in advance. He says there's nothing that fools us, nothing. And I said, well, that's why they're the Patriots. I mean, that's exactly why nothing fools them. That's not the case with every team. I've seen other teams where that's not the case at all. I've seen guys getting arguments in the room. I've actually a couple of times been there and seen, and heard about and seen arguments with between personnel guys and coaches and different guys, so that stuff goes on. But this year, you know what? You're going to have your ducks in a row. And I would think even the stuff with the Lions, if there's that many teams, and, I've seen a couple of stories where they've had as many as 5 teams being involved. I got to figure the Lions are going to know before that draft what team they're trading with. That deal's got to be done. A deal that big's got to be done before the draft even starts.
Yeah, well, I'm not so much talking about that. I think that stuff. Look, we're talking about the 3rd pick in the draft.
Yeah,
right?
that's done. I mean, we're going to know we're going to know which deal they're going to take. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like that the 3rd pick in the draft. You can have some foresight on that one and work ahead on it. I think it's more, say CeeDee Lamb drops to 20.
Yeah.
Or say.
Yeah, I agree. And with a wide receiver, that could definitely happen. And somebody's looking to trade up.
Right.
And and those trades, they could get 5 or 6 offers. Absolutely, that's true.
Right. And that's part of it. I think it's not the ones that we can foresee. I mean, there are ones that you can look at okay, if you want to, you're probably going to call Detroit. And you're probably going to kind of take the temperature on what they're looking for the 3rd pick. As we get closer to the draft, their lines are probably going to have an idea of exactly what they can get for the pick, and that decision is going to be made before they're on the clock.
Do you believe there's any? Do you believe any validity at all? And I don't think there is. I think Rivera wants the linebacker, but do you
Yeah.
believe any of these stories that they're backing out of that pick now, and they're thinking about really doing something crazy with the second pick in the draft?
All right, so I'll explain to you what I know about the way the Redskins have operated on this with the second pick. And when they went into this, the idea was let's kick the tires on the quarterbacks, and that's twofold. Okay, number one, you do that because you want to make sure, if one person there put it to me, you want to make sure, quote unquote, we're not passing on Michael Jordan. Right? Like, so you may like Haskins, but you want to make sure you know exactly what you're passing.
Well, I'm telling you right now, if he's healthy, they are. I mean,
Okay.
in my mind, they are. Yeah, they're passing on a guy that good. Now, the only thing I can't guarantee is he's going to play. I can't guarantee he's going to be healthy. I mean, he's got too many injuries.
Sure.
The guy's had 4 major injuries in 2 years. I can't tell you, but if he's healthy, they're going to pass on a guy who's going to be a star. I don't think there's any question.
So that's number one, right? Okay, so whatever you think about him, like, number one, you're making sure you know what you're passing on. And number two, by showing interest, they're at least creating the illusion they're considering it, which I know they believe will smoke out offers. So then, not only do you know what you're passing on in the player, you also know what you're passing on in the value of the pick. And so, like, if you show interest in Tua and you get it out there that you really might do it, then other teams are going to be motivated to call you. And so you're going to get an idea of what you might be able to get back for the pick. So I still think it's Chase Young. I still think that, Ron Rivera looks at this and sees what the Niners did last year with Nick Bosa. And like the Niners, they've got all these first-round picks on their defensive line with Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen and Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan. And they could, certainly you could sit there and say, if we take Chase Young, it's going to put us over the top as far as our D-line goes. But you also want to make sure you're maximizing the pick. And so this is going to allow them to fully sort of, as best they can, balance what Tua is versus Chase Young and balance what the value of the pick might be in a trade versus Chase Young.
This is fascinating. There's 3 parts to this. The first part is that they're not passing on a great quarterback, number one. Number two, there's a chance you could really love the quarterback and even love Chase Young more and say Chase Young's going to be the best linebacker, edge rusher to come in the league since, whatever guy you want to name. He's going to be a first team All-Pro, wreak havoc, be a defensive player of the year kind of player, which some people think he is. I don't happen to be one of those.
Well,
but I mean, so if you think he's that good, then you got to make that pick. So it's an interesting thing. Some people love Young that much. Some people love Tua that much. Some people are down on Tua physically. I don't know where some guys are on you. I think some people think Young's clock doesn't always. I mean, that is his level of intensity isn't always there. That you hear that a little bit. But remember, I go back, Albert, where I know guys who said that about Lawrence Taylor.
Well, and if you think he's Lawrence Taylor,
right? And guys said that about Lawrence Taylor. I mean, they did. I mean, some guys were knocking Lawrence Taylor when he came out.
If you think Chase Young is Lawrence Taylor, all right, I'm going to give you a different scenario for you, okay? Let's say you want to give Dwayne Haskins 1 year, right? So now you're saying to yourself, okay, we have to consider Tua, but we could just sit here and give Haskins a year and draft Chase Young. And then if Haskins doesn't work out, we're probably going to be pretty bad, and maybe we'll be in position to get Trevor Lawrence next year or Justin Fields next year. And so there's a real scenario here where the Redskins could look at it and say to themselves, 20.
We lost you for a second. What was the last thing you just said? We lost you for a second.
I'm going to say, so here's what you can do. We're going to take Dwayne Haskins out for a test drive in 2020.
Right.
All right. We're going to draft what we believe is the best player in the draft.
Right.
In Chase Young. And then if it doesn't work out, we can come back and look at the quarterback next year.
Right, because there's big quarterbacks there, and there's top quarterbacks last year, including Lawrence, who everyone knows is going to be let's be honest, he's going to be a Peyton Manning type quarterback. We all know that. So, he's yes.
So that's the thing. So if you're the Redskins, you could look at this and say, we may have something in Haskins, we may not. but let's get him in our system. Let's see how it works. We'll give it a year. And if it works, great. Then we've got a quarterback and we've got Chase Young. If it doesn't, then we've got Chase Young and we've got an opportunity to look at another quarterback class next year that might be better than this year's draft class. So I think you sort of have to look at this way. The Ron Rivera is in a position where he has some rope right now. He's got a lot of power in that organization. He doesn't need to win the Super Bowl in year one.
Right.
And they can sort of game this a little bit, So I think that's the wise thing that they're doing. I talk about how they're gaming.
I think they're taking the line. I think Rivera's taking a linebacker. I don't think he's hidden the fact that he wants the linebacker. I think he wants the linebacker, so I think he's going to take him. Myself, I think that's because what you said is true. If the quarterback bombs, they'll have a chance for a quarterback next year. I think you're right. And then they'll let people deal. The Lions can't take. I mean, let's be honest. Patricia has to win this year. Plus Stafford, they can't do anything with his contract. He has to be there this year, so they're going to have to trade the pick. They should get a lot for him, and still get the top player they want. So they're still going to get the player because they're probably going to go to 5. They're not going worse than 5. What do you think the Giants will do at 4? Do you think they'll take a top defensive player, or do you think they will take the first of the offensive tackles?
I think the offensive tackle thing is a very real thing. Somebody actually said to me a little earlier today, Mike, find the biggest offensive tackle and give him to Dave Gettleman. And right now, I mean, that would be Mekhi Becton.
See, I like the guy at Iowa better myself. I think he's a better athlete. Yeah. I like him. I think he's a proven player. And I'm not knocking Becton at all. But I think the kid at Iowa is the best of the tackles myself, because I think he is a freaky athletic guy who's got a little edge to him. And I think he's going to be the best of the tackles, but we'll see.
I wouldn't rule out Isaiah Simmons there either.
Right, so I wouldn't either. I don't know if he's going to take him. And what do you think the Lions? The Lions will take the corner.
I think the Lions. Yeah, the Lions had this. I think they'd probably take the corner, and that would put the Giants in a position to pick between either Simmons or an offensive tackle. That to me, if everything were to stay static. And, I mean, I don't think it's likely that there are no trades in the first 3 or 4 picks, but if there weren't any trades...
Well, let's say the Dolphins have to get up. Let's say the Lions go to 5. They'll still wind up probably with the corner anyway. So the Giants aren't going to take the corner.
And that's what the Lions are looking at right now.
And they can get the Dolphins' second-round pick and right there pick up another top player.
Right, and you look at it, and you say to yourself, if you're the Lions, okay, there are probably 4 elite defensive players in the draft, right? So Chase Young is going to be gone, but then you got Jeff Okudah, Derek Brown, and Isaiah Simmons. If you don't fall further back than 6, which is where the Chargers are, you're still going to be in a position to get one of those guys.
Absolutely, and you picked up another top pick. Right,
and it may not be the one that you necessarily wanted, but from what I understand, all 4 of those guys have a chance to be all pro-level players.
See, I think Giants are taking Simmons. I think the Giants are either taking Simmons or an offensive tackle. And if Simmons is as good as everyone thinks he is, they'll probably take him. But I can't think they'll go wrong if they take an offensive tackle. They'll take one or the other.
And I think, look, there's the one thing about, I think the offensive tackle is in play, no question. And then I think the other piece of this you want to look at with Simmons, okay, and this is on 2 levels. There's Dave Gettleman, who got a lot out of his linebackers in Carolina. They had Luke Kuechly there. They had Thomas Davis there. They drafted Shaq Thompson in the first round. They clearly, puts value in that position, and it's a position that has been devalued over the years. The second piece of this that I think is interesting is the type of defense that Joe Judge is going to have Patrick Graham install in New York is very, very multiple. And so you need players who can do a lot of different things, and that's exactly what Isaiah Simmons is.
Right.
Isaiah Simmons isn't you're going to line him up at Mike linebacker, and just leave him there. You're going to move him all over the place. And the one thing and you know this as well as anyone, Mike, if you watch the Belichick Patriots over the last 20 years, what do they love? They love guys who can do a lot of different things.
They want versatile. They want tough, versatile players. That's what they want. Absolutely.
And Simmons fits the bill there. Good kid, the right kind of guy that Joe Judge can bring in and say this. He's sort of a self-made kid who was a 3-star recruit out of high school, sort of built himself into what he's become. Incredibly versatile, smart. He fits. He just checks a lot of the Patriot boxes. I'll put it that way. and Joe Judge coming to New York and trying to set up that sort of program, I think it would make sense on a lot of different levels to find a guy like that to sort of be the leader of your team down the line.
It looks like, Albert, that the worst rule to come in a long time, that terrible challenge of the pass interference, is gone after 1 year. Right? It sounds like it's out, right?
It looks like it's out.
It should be. They never had their heart in it anyway. They should take it out.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's just sort of brought to light like conflict between the officials and the coaches. Really, I think that thing got nastier than people know. What the coaches really wanted it to be, though, and I can tell you this unequivocally, what more than 3/4 of the coaches, and maybe all of them, wanted the pass interference thing to be. They wanted it to be a step towards getting a sky judge and giving someone on the officiating crew access to the television broadcast, the same as me or you have any Sunday, and having a chance to use all the different angles that we all get to see in crystal clear HD. And so if the sky judge goes in, I think the coaches, who are the ones that sort of pushed the PI thing last year, are going to be happy.
Well, you think the sky judge or the star, whatever you want to call it, you think that guy is ready to get moved in this year? A guy who has all the technical capabilities to overlook everything? You think he's going to get moved in this year?
I would not be surprised. So, listen, here's what the Ravens and the Chargers were responsible for proposing this. The way the Ravens and Chargers are proposing it, the guy would not have an ability to stop the game, right? And the guy would be underneath the referee. So he's reporting to the referee. He's
an aide to the referee. He's a technological aide to the referee.
Which to me, Mike, makes all the sense in the world. If you have somebody who can buzz down to the ref, who can say, and look, the
and he's working. His job is to make the ref look good. That's his job.
Right. And the ref is going to sit. If we can give the officials the benefit, like tens of millions of Americans have every game they watch, right?
Yep.
Sitting there on your couch, you have the benefit of all these different angles of crystal clear HD. Like, if you can give the officials that benefit, why won't you do it?
And he's got a relationship with each official. They work as a team. The referee and he work as a team every week, so he knows how to work that referee. He knows what that referee likes. He knows how to work with that referee. And that's his guy. They're a team.
And it works for the coaches and the guys in the field, too, because now that guy's in the stadium. He's part of the crew, so he's accountable to the coaching staff.
I also know that what Vrabel did this year is out. He got away with it last year, but the Vrabel, the back-to-back penalties to kill time off the clock without any plays is gone. That's out. They're not letting them do that again.
That's going to be gone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's gone. Belichick did that. He did somebody else earlier in the year.
Yep.
The Jets? He did it to somebody else.
Yeah, he did it to the Jets, and then Vrabel did it to him.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was. I mean, that was what to me. That was like maybe a little bit more of one of those loopholes that Bill was smart enough to find, and then Vrabel turns the tables on. I think we all knew that that was something that was probably easy enough to kind of tie up that loophole, which they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, well, that made sense. I mean, that was. Hey, listen, give them credit for finding a loophole. They did, but they don't want in the fourth quarter a minute and a half going off the clock without any plays being run.
Right. And it makes all the sense in the world because that wasn't. That's not the way it's intended to happen. And again, like you said, you give Bill credit for figuring it out. But yeah, I think that's an easy enough one to take care of.
No question about it. All right, listen, good to talk to you. We'll talk to you again before the draft. Thanks very much. Have a nice Easter.
WFAN.
All right, on this Good Friday, we come to you a little past 6. We'll take you right up until 6:30. Brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Brought to you by those who drink it on this Good Friday. Happy Passover, everybody. Happy Easter weekend, everybody, as we take you to this craziest of Easters that you will ever remember. You'll never experiencing anything like it. We are in the throes of more chaos, and you're going to get more debate starting this weekend because we're going to start to see as the curve goes down a little bit and people get a little anesthetized to the death rate, which they are already, and to the how many people are infected rate. And now they start to think about the economics of this and restarting Okay, and then the question of how dangerous is it to restart? How much testing do we need? Okay, do we not need testing? We do need testing. All right, those who don't want testing don't want testing because they don't want the numbers to be as big as they had feared. But the question should really be what gets everybody back as safely as possible. That really is the only thing that matters. Getting people back and getting them back safely. That's if you can't get them back safely, you can't get them back. If you're going to bring people back and tell them that they got to wear masks and they can't go within 10 feet of anybody else, well, it's not going to work. How are you going to get to work? What are you going to do? Sit in your own office? What if you work in an office with a lot of people? What are you going to do in the elevators? Go up one at a time? So, I mean, what are you going to do if you have to take a subway or a train? Sit in your own car? It's not going to happen. So a lot of this stuff is impossible if you're going to reopen the country. And if you're going to reopen the country and everybody's going to get sick again or get sicker, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So we are in a very chaotic state right now. Yes, we're up against it, and we have been the bounce back by the stock market the last couple of days in one regard, I think, has placated people because they look at that as it can't be that bad if the stock market's doing well. Stock market has been, in my mind, falsely propped up by what the Fed has done. It can't continue. So the news is going to come out now about how bad things are. And as it comes out, you're going to get more negativity towards the market. You're going to see how bad it really is. You're going to hear how bad it really is. And there's going to be that feeling. And then the reality is going to come in. But if you rush everybody back, then what did we bother doing it for if no one's going to be safe? And what people care about is being safe. And look at the one poll that was done. I understand it's not a wide scientific poll, but you don't need that many people to get the idea. And this is the gist. Basically, I want to get out of the house, but I don't want to go anywhere where I'm not going to be safe. That's it in a nutshell. I just put in all this time. I've been in the house. If I have my own business, my business isn't good. If I have to work for a living or I didn't work in the last month, my pocketbook's not good and my budget isn't good. Whatever the situation, nothing is that good economically. And now if I go back, A, did I have it? Very few people know if they had it or not. B, can I get it again? Because now there's even reports out of Korea that you can get it again, which would scare the heck out of everybody because they've been telling you, well, if you don't have it once, then you can't get it again. Well, we don't even know that. And I'm not going to any big events or doing anything, getting on an airplane or doing anything until I know I'm safe. Now, that doesn't mean everybody. I think the people under 30 years of age think they're invulnerable and no one can hurt them and they're bulletproof and everything else, which they're not. But they could think that way. And if I were 30, I think the same way. I'm telling you right now, I would. I wouldn't be thinking about anything. I'd just be going right back out. And I probably would have been the one they were yelling at that I wasn't paying attention. I first to admit that. But I'm not. And now I've worried because, hey, I've known people who are my age who've been healthy and have gotten it and have died. And we all have pretty much now. We know people who've been in the hospital sick. We know doctors who have treated patients and gotten sick. I know people who have died. We all do. So there's been a cold reality to this. So nobody wants to jeopardize themselves when they come back. Yes, they want to get back. Yes, everybody wants to get back. We want to go back to our way of life. We miss it. We want there to be games. We want to be able to go to a movie, go out to dinner, go to a show, go to a game. Everybody wants that desperately. Wants to be able to travel this summer, want to be able to go to the beach, want to be able to go to Saratoga, want to be able to have horse racing again. We want everything back. I understand that. But if we have it and we get a second wave and you see this stuff now that when we had the last plague, and this has almost been like a plague, that it was the second wave that was the deadliest. Well, no one wants any part of that. And although they have done a lot of work, there's a wonderful story in the Wall Street Journal today about Pfizer and all the other companies and how much work they have diligently done towards getting some vaccines or some therapeutics that'll work, and where they are and how far ahead they are and how much work they're doing. And there's 21 different companies involved and all this different stuff. Okay, so that's at least something that you can hang your hat on. But right now, you don't want to go out and get knocked flat on your back and then fear that you're going to go to a hospital. And the fear that I can tell you right now that I had was, hey, you know what? I didn't want to bring it into my house. I didn't want anyone to get it. But if I got it, I would have been okay. But then in the back of my mind was, well, what happens if I have to go to the hospital and all of a sudden I can't breathe? You know what? That's your fear. We all had it. I had doctors call me up saying, hey, you know what? I'm 60-something years old. I don't want to get this. And I understand why. Because what if you're the one person out of 10 or one person out of 20 who it attacks your lungs, and it was attacking people's lungs in such a way that it was doing severe damage, and all of a sudden the ventilator wasn't working, the medicine wasn't working, nothing was working, and people are dying. Look how many people have died. Look how many people died. People have been dying in our neck of the woods, in our backyards. People have been dying by the 600s and 700s and 800s every night. It's not been something that isn't real. It is real. So no one wants to come back unless it's safe. And we understand we're up against an economic clock. We understand that. Everyone wants to get back to a life of normalcy, but safety is an enormous part of this. And the first thing that has to happen is you don't have to be guaranteed that you can't get the virus. No one's going to guarantee you that. But what you need a guarantee is that they have something that'll save your life if you get it. And we don't have that yet. Until we have that, everyone's going to have this fear in the back of their minds. And I can tell you right now, until they have that, I'm not going into a stadium. I'm not voluntarily getting on a plane with a lot of people. I'm not doing that. I'm not going into a hotel room, which I don't know who was in it before me. I'm not doing that until I get some assurances that they have something at the hospital that if I get sick, because in the past, your theory was, hey, if I get sick and they can get me to the hospital, I'm going to live. Now, you don't know that. And that's what we need, that assurance. If we can get that assurance, we're home, but we don't have it yet. And now we're in this push, pull. Oh, we could have a depression. Yeah, we could. I mean, that's not crazy. We could have a depression. Because we completely stopped the entire economy. And they can think they can prop it up, but I don't believe they can. And I'm not an economist, but I don't think we can prop it up for very long. And I understand the idea, well, we got to get the country moving again. I do understand that. But if we did it and all of a sudden we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands sick and we have nowhere to put them and we can't get them healthy and they're dying off in huge numbers, what is that going to look like? And we've already had a taste of that and we don't want a bigger taste of it. So this is a tough call. This is not one you want to have because you got a real chance of being really wrong here if you're making this call. Now, we know one person isn't making this call. There's a lot of issues. Cities, states are going to have their own say in this. The government's going to have a big say in this. But this has to be done in a careful manner. We already took a drastic step. Now we need to do this in a careful manner. Baseball, you can tell already, is remodeling their Arizona plan. That Arizona plan, as I told you, if you were listening to radio.com earlier today, was not going over very well. Now you have a different plan they're trying to, but won't matter because I can tell by the way the players reacted, a lot of them don't feel safe. And I hearken back to what Mark Cuban said on CNBC yesterday, 2 days ago. And I like when Cuban comes on there because he's smart. And they said to him, when's the NBA coming back? He said, "My team's coming back when I'm convinced my players will be safe." Case closed. There's nothing else that needs to be said. And that's the same thing we all need. Convince us that we have at least a modicum of safety and we're coming back. But you got to convince us we have that. And you can't tell us some lie. You got to tell us the truth. If we don't have that, tell us that. And if we do have it, great, we're back. If we don't have it, you got to tell us that. And you're starting to see outbreaks now in other places in the country that was all New York, was all New York. Well, now it's not all New York. Now you're seeing little stories about other places. And you're going to get more of those in the days to come because some of them are running behind us. And I'm not saying we're out of the woods yet here because we're not. I talk to people at the hospitals here, and they say that they're not seeing fewer deaths, but they're seeing fewer people come to the hospital, fewer people going to intensive care. They are seeing that. So that's a positive. But they're not seeing fewer deaths in our areas yet. They will. The fewer numbers that go in, eventually there'll be fewer numbers dying. It's just as simple as that. But right now, that's not the case. So the death numbers are still horrific. We're still dealing with that every night. 700, 770, just outrageous numbers of people. Your heart goes out to every one of them. And if you need food, and you're hearing more and more about people who need food, the money hasn't gotten to them yet, they might not have food. We don't want people turning to rash actions. Call the food centers. And please, be generous. Donate. Even in your neighborhood, in your area close to home, donate what you can so that people have a place to turn to because those food banks are getting overtaxed right now. The number is 1-800-5-HUNGRY that we always give you to donate, or if you're in need of sustenance, call them. They'll get you directly to someone who will help you, and if you can help them, they'll tell you where to go to donate. So it's the same number. Use the same people we use all the time, the people we hit you with on Thanksgiving that you're so generous to. The people we've been in business with on the fan for all these years. 1-800-5-HUNGRY. Donate what you can. Give what you can. If you need to take, if it's your turn that you need help, same number. They'll help you. They'll help you immediately. Don't overreact. Keep your wits. Stay calm. I know this is still getting a little crazy, and it might get a little crazier. So if you can, stay calm. We'll come back, take a quick break, then we'll come back, and we'll get some calls in on this Good Friday as we head towards Easter Sunday on the fan. And I will be with you Sunday morning from 9 until 1 as we continue to step in on Sundays until they get the regular, rotation back, whenever that is. But I'll be with you 9 to 1 on Easter Sunday on the fan and on CBS Sports Radio. And tonight you got a game with Howie coming up at 6:30, so you can listen to that. A Met Classic this evening. It takes you back, give you a chance to sit back and listen to that. And remember when the people entering the hospitals in our metropolitan area has gone down. It has gone down appreciably. So the staying at home, staying away from people, doing what they've asked you to do is working. Is it resulting yet in a decrease in the death numbers? Not yet, because those people have entered the hospital. They've been lingering on ventilators, and they're still perishing at extreme numbers. Hopefully those will go down in the next few days. They will, because there's fewer people in intensive care and fewer people in the hospital. But those numbers are still extremely alarming. They've been in the high 700s for days, and that's very hard to take. And the number nationally is approaching 20,000 dead. And now the debate's going to shift. And it's going to be an extreme debate as we head into this second 2 weeks of April because the economic data is going to be extreme. The economic tensions are going to ratchet up dramatically. A lot of people are out of money. They haven't received any money yet, so they're going to start to panic. So there's a lot going on. Frank in the Bronx. Real quick, Frank, what's up? I want to try and get these calls in. Go ahead, Frank.
What's up, Mike? How are you,
Good,
buddy?
what's happening?
Not much, man. I usually get on you for silly stuff or nonsense, but you made such a point just now. This world that we're living in, and you just kind of nailed it right on the head, man. Like, it sucks right now that the way we're living and the way things are going, and guys like yourself, when you really put it that way, you made a lot of sense.
Well, listen, it's going to get better. Listen, just you know what?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not worried
It's
about it.
and listen. Thanks for the call and have a nice Easter. It's going to get better. It is just it's not good right now. Somebody sent out a tweet and just said 2020's got a lot of nerve. In other words, basically, what is the rest of this calendar going to deliver? They could deliver some nice weather, too. I mean, it's 40 and freezing today, or 35 and freezing today. We could use some 70-degree weather to go outside. If we're going to be doing this, we could use some nicer days, although they've even completely shut the golf courses down now. You can't even walk them anymore. So even that's happened. Dean in Garden City. Go ahead, Dean.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good, what's happening?
Great show as always. Listen, I'm a surgeon in the area, and
Okay.
I just wanted to make 2 points.
Go ahead.
One, I see a lot of activity. It seems like the market's doing better. People are starting to feel better. We're getting a lot of optimistic tone out of our leaders, but it is still very, very bad out there. People need to stay home. This is far from over.
I agree with you. I think the market has been actually sending the wrong message. I think that's because the Fed has propped them up with so much money. The market, I do not think, will continue doing that. I'm surprised that it's done as well as it has. And I agree with you because I have a lot of friends who work in the hospital business and doctors, and they keep telling me how bad it is. So you're right. I know that. And you probably are you a surgeon?
I'm a surgeon, correct.
Yeah, and you haven't done any elective surgery at all, right?
Nothing. I mean, and I'm a colorectal surgeon.
Right.
Even patients with cancer, we have to hold off as long as
Have
we
you
can.
done any surgeries at all? Have you done any surgeries?
Emergency surgery. Anything if people are bleeding, they're perforated, things like that.
Gotcha.
But the other point is a lot of attention has been paid to ventilators. And if you get put on a ventilator, it is a very poor prognostic sign.
Right, you're pretty much done, right?
Yeah, it's not good.
Right.
So that's why staying at home is critical. And I wanted to get your opinion. I love it when you take real world experiences and you put it in terms of sport. As far as our leaders go, not to get political.
Go ahead. Ask
however,
the question.
do you feel that this man is up for this job? If you had a quarterback that was throwing pick after pick after pick, at some point you have to do something. And I don't know what can be done, but I just do not feel comfortable that our leadership has.
I don't think he's had a good read on the situation. Okay, and I think when you're dealing a president. Thanks for the call, Doc. First, and be well. A president is only going to be as good as two things: his information and the people around him that he trusts. Now, I don't know who he trusts and who he doesn't trust, but you're only going to be as good as your inner circle and as good as the information you're getting. Now, he's leaned on Fauci here, and Fauci is the number one infectious disease guy in the world. And I think he's made some sound calls with him. I think they got off to a very slow start. And I think the problem is, and this is a very hard thing, the president's extremely competitive, and he's got his eye always on November. He's got to get his eye off November right now and his eye on the virus. And he's got to understand, and this is what somebody's got to get in his head, beating the virus will be the best thing he can do in the long run for November. So put everything into that. Everything into that. Stop worrying about the message as far as how it plays to the base or how it plays to the polls, and worry about the problem at hand. And I don't think that's been done enough. I just think I think what we respond to is a plan we can all rally around and believe in. And what we need now, and what I would do if I were the president, is I would spend the next 4 days getting together the people I want in that White House, be it the leaders of industry, be it Buffett and Gates and Bezos and anybody that I think is that smart and that bright, and guys who have hands in the military, guys who have hands in delivery, guys who have hands in technology, guys who have hands in medicine. I would have everybody there, guys who have hands in every form of capitalism, every form of industry, every form of culture, and then I'd listen to all of them and say, let me hear ideas, let me hear plans, let me hear what we should be doing here, and then narrow it from there. Because we need a plan going forward here. And until we have a plan, that while we're still at home, we need a plan we can believe in and rally around. And we need to see that plan. All right, in 10 days, we're going to do this. Or in 2 weeks, we're going to do this. Or in 1 week, we're going to do this. That's what we need. That's something we can get our arms on. That's something we can rally around. That's what we need. And that's what's been lacking, is we need something we can be directed by, something we believe in, something that is tangible, and something that we all believe will work. And the first thing he's got to do is find out what that thing that will work is, taking into account the economy, taking into account distribution, military, medicine, the economy, Wall Street, every part of our culture, the school systems, everything, and then go from there. Listen, everybody, as much as you can, have a very, very happy holiday weekend. Be safe. And hopefully things will take a turn after the weekend for the better. Hopefully. Just keep your fingers crossed. Say a prayer, and maybe that will be the way we go. Casamigos Tequila, as always, brings you the program brought to you by those who drink it. Have a very, very happy Easter, happy holiday, happy Passover, and whatever you do this weekend, stay safe. Howie's next with the Met stuff, and we'll see you Sunday morning at 9.